A tourist decides to mock a royal guard to impress his girlfriend. But seconds later, an action by the soldier on duty leaves everyone present in shock. The morning fog of London had not yet completely dissipated when Marcus Hartwell stepped out of the taxi in front of Buckingham Palace. He adjusted his Ray-Ban sunglasses, checked the Rolex on his wrist, a gesture more performative than functional, and smiled at his girlfriend, Isabel, who was already busy taking selfies. Marcus was 32 years old, had a fortune inherited from his father, who had built a technology empire, and an unshakable conviction that the world existed to entertain him. "Look at this, Belle," he said, pointing at the royal guards posted in their boxes. "They're like those wind-up toys you buy in toy stores, just life-size versions." Isabel laughed, but there was something forced about the sound. She was beginning to notice a pattern over the past few weeks. Marcus always found a way to belittle things. At the Eiffel Tower, he had complained about the stairs. At the Colosseum, he criticized the maintenance. Now, in front of one of England's oldest and most respected traditions, he saw only toys. The nearest guard was a man who appeared to be around 40. His posture was impeccable, the red uniform immaculate, the bearskin hat perfectly positioned. His eyes stared at a point beyond the tourists, beyond the buildings, as if he could see something only he could see. His name was James Crawford, and he had been there for 19 years. Every day, every hour, every minute counted in silent discipline. Marcus approached, that cynical smile on his face. A small group of tourists was already watching the scene, some anticipating what was to come, others oblivious. "Hey man," Marcus said, stopping just inches from the guard. "Do you blink? Like, biologically you have to blink, right? Or do they remove that function when you join the funny clothes club?" Silence. James remained motionless, breathing controlled, eyes fixed ahead. He had learned long ago that immobility was not the absence of action, but the purest form of presence. Every tourist who passed, every provocation, every attempt to make him laugh or move was a test not only of physical discipline, but of inner purpose. "Marcus, let's go," Isabel murmured, touching her boyfriend's arm. "Leave him alone." "Relax, Belle. It's just for fun." Marcus pulled his phone out of his pocket and started recording. "People are going to love this on Instagram. Trying to make the British robot smile. I bet I can get at least 500,000 views." He began making faces, exaggerated movements, strange sounds. Other tourists stopped to watch. Some laughed uncomfortably. Others filmed as well. A Japanese woman whispered something to her husband in a disapproving tone. An elderly British couple shook their heads and walked away, the disdain evident on their faces. James did not move, but inside him something was happening. Not anger. He had learned years ago not to give anger space. It was more like a calm sadness. He thought of his son, Daniel, who was 7 years old. Daniel, who looked at his father with those eyes full of admiration every time James put on the uniform. "Daddy is a hero," Daniel would say. James always corrected him, "Not a hero, son, just a servant." "Man, seriously, you don't even move." Marcus was even closer now, completely disrespecting the guard's personal space. "Is this like some hypnotic trance? Do they drug you before putting you here? Because this can't be natural. Nobody is that robotic." His voice was loud enough to make sure everyone around could hear, full of an arrogance that came from birth. Marcus had grown up in a bubble where his will was law, employees were invisible, and respect was something he received, never something he needed to give. Isabel was becoming increasingly uncomfortable. She had met Marcus at a charity event in New York 6 months earlier. He was charming, handsome, well-dressed. All the superficial boxes were checked. But lately, She was beginning to see beyond the packaging. And what she saw was not particularly attractive. There was a casual cruelty in the way he treated waiters, taxi drivers, anyone he considered beneath him. She had rationalized before, justified it, made excuses. But watching him mock that guard, something inside her began to break. "Marcus, enough," she said, this time more firmly. "This isn't okay." "Isn't okay?" Marcus mocked, imitating her voice. "Belle, you're getting way too sensitive. It's just a guy standing there. He's not even a real person at this moment. He's a tourist attraction, like Mickey Mouse at Disneyland." It was at that moment that James Crawford did something he did only in extreme circumstances. Maintaining his posture and his fixed gaze, he began to speak. His voice was low, controlled, each word articulated with military precision. He did not look at Marcus. He didn't need to. "Sir, I will politely ask you to step back and maintain a respectful distance." The crowd fell silent. It was rare for guards to speak. Marcus blinked, momentarily surprised, but then his smile grew even wider. "Oh, he talks. Folks, he talks. This is amazing. What's the next trick? Do you do a somersault?" "Sir," James repeated, his voice still calm, "I will ask a second time that you maintain an appropriate distance. This is your final warning." "Or what?" Marcus laughed, taking another step even closer, his face inches from the guard. "You're going to arrest me? In that party outfit? Man, you can barely move in that ridiculous uniform." That's when it happened. James did not move out of anger or impulse. Every action that followed was the result of years of training and established protocols. He took one deliberate step forward, a movement so sudden and powerful that Marcus stumbled backward, nearly falling. "Maintain distance!" James shouted, his voice carrying an undeniable authority. It was not a shout of anger. It was the command of a soldier, trained to control situations, trained to establish order. "You are interfering with a member of the Queen's Guard on active duty. Step back immediately, or you will be escorted by authorities." The transformation was instant and complete. The wax figure had become a full soldier, and all the force of his presence, training, and purpose was concentrated in that moment. Marcus froze, his face suddenly pale. The cell phone nearly slipped from his hand. But James was not finished. Maintaining his impeccable posture, he continued, his voice now returning to normal volume, but losing none of its intensity. "This uniform you consider ridiculous was worn by men who died defending this nation. The hat I wear is made of Canadian bearskin in honor of soldiers who fought at the Battle of Waterloo. Every button, every detail has history, has meaning. You are standing before a tradition that is over 300 years old, a tradition built in blood, sacrifice, and service." The crowd around was completely silent now. Cameras were still recording, but the tone had completely changed. This was no longer entertainment. It was something different, something deeper. Marcus tried to regain his composure. I was just joking, man. No offense." "Offense was given, sir," James replied, his eyes still fixed ahead. "But not to me. The offense was given to every man and woman who has ever worn this uniform, to every family that lost someone in service, to every child who grew up without a father or mother because they chose to serve something greater than themselves." Isabel had tears in her eyes now. Not of sadness, but of something more complex, a mixture of shame over Marcus's behavior, admiration for the guard, and a kind of internal awakening. She touched Marcus's arm again, but this time it was not a hesitant touch. It was firm, determined. "We're leaving. Now." Marcus opened his mouth to protest, but something in her look stopped him. He looked around at the crowd, saw the faces, the judgment, and realized he was not being supported. For the first time in a long time, Marcus Hartwell felt something he rarely experienced. Shame. "I'm sorry," he murmured, barely audible. Then, louder, looking in James's general direction, I'm really sorry, you're right. I was an idiot." James did not respond. He had returned to his original position, eyes fixed ahead, breathing controlled. To casual observers, it was as if the incident had never happened. Marcus and Isabel walked away in silence. The crowd slowly dispersed, but several people stopped to look at James with newfound respect. An elderly woman who had seen everything cautiously approached and placed a hand over her heart, making a slight nod of her head. James, maintaining his posture, blinked once in acknowledgement. It was the smallest of communications, but she understood. They walked for several minutes before Isabel finally spoke. "That was horrible, Marcus." "I know, I said I'm sorry." "No, you don't know." She stopped walking, turning to face him. "You said you're sorry, but I bet in your head you still think you were just having fun, that it was exaggerated, that the guy could have just relaxed." Marcus frowned. "Belle, I admitted I was wrong. What more do you want?" "I want you to really understand why you were wrong. Not because someone embarrassed you, not because other people saw, but because what you did was cruel, and I've seen you do this repeatedly, with waiters, drivers, with anyone who to you seems like they're supposed to serve you." "So that's what this is about?" Marcus crossed his arms defensively. "You're judging me now? I thought we were having fun together on this trip." "I was trying to have fun, trying to ignore the pattern, but I can't anymore." Isabel took a deep breath, feeling something shift inside her. "That guard, he's standing there defending something, believing in something and serving something greater than himself. You treated him like an inanimate object. That says a lot about who you are, when you think there are no consequences." "So what then? You're going to lecture me now? Tell me I'm privileged and spoiled?" "Breaking news, Belle. You also come from privilege. You've also never worked a real day in your life." Isabel slowly shook her head. "You're right. I come from privilege. But at least I'm trying to recognize it. I treat people with the dignity they deserve. You don't even see people, Marcus." They stood there on the London sidewalk, tourists flowing around them, the city pulsing with life indifferent to their small drama. Marcus wanted to be angry, but something about the encounter with the guard, the way James spoke, had affected him. "So what do you want me to do?" he asked. "Go back there and kneel? Write a public apology? What fixes this?" Isabel considered the question. "Honestly, I don't know if it can be fixed. But maybe it starts with asking yourself why you needed to do that, why you needed to belittle that man. What is it in you that's so insecure that you only feel big when you make others feel small?" Marcus had no answer, or perhaps he did, but he wasn't ready to admit it. They resumed walking in silence, but now there was a distance between them that was not measured in meters. Meanwhile, back at Buckingham Palace, James Crawford continued in his position. His shift would end in 40 minutes. Then he would go home, remove the uniform with the same care with which he had put it on, and hug his son Daniel. He would not tell Daniel about the arrogant tourist. There was no need. But when Daniel asked, as he always did, "How was work, Daddy?" James would smile and say, "It was a day of service, son, and service is a privilege." Because James Crawford understood something that Marcus Hartwell was only beginning to see. Everyone deserves the chance to receive dignity and respect. 3 hours later, Marcus was sitting alone in a pub in Notting Hill. Isabel had said she needed some time to think and had gone back to the hotel. He ordered his third whiskey, each one going down a little smoother than the last. The pub was the traditional kind, Dark wood, old mirrors, the smell of spilled beer and history. A painting on the wall showed British soldiers from various eras. Marcus found himself staring at it, his eyes tracing the serious faces, the impeccable uniforms. Young faces, many of them. Men who had chosen something. He couldn't quite articulate what. Interesting, isn't it? A voice beside him made him turn. It was an older man, perhaps in his early 60s, neatly cut gray hair, upright posture even while sitting on the bar stool. He wore a simple sweater, but there was something about his presence. "Sorry?" Marcus asked. The man gestured to the painting. "The faces. I'm always fascinated by the faces. So many young ones, but you see something in them. A seriousness, a commitment. Things that seem increasingly rare." Marcus took a sip of his whiskey, not sure if he wanted this conversation, but also not particularly eager to be alone with his thoughts. "Are you military?" "I was. Royal Marines. 32 years of service. Retired 5 years ago." The man extended his hand. "Andrew Finnegan." "Marcus Hartwell." Andrew's handshake was firm, but not performatively strong. Just solid, confident. "American?" Andrew observed. "Yes, from New York. Was on vacation with my girlfriend." "Was?" Andrew caught the cue but didn't press. Instead, he gestured to the bartender. "Another one for me and for my new friend here." They drank in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Marcus, perhaps because of the alcohol, or the need to confess to someone who didn't know him, began to speak. "I did something stupid today. Something really stupid." Andrew said nothing, just listened. That particular skill some people have of creating space for others to speak. Marcus told the whole story. The incident at the palace, the faces, the taunts, the moment when the guard spoke, Isabel's anger. He didn't embellish. He didn't try to make himself look better. Maybe because he was tired of pretending. Because, in the presence of this stranger who would clearly understand the guard's perspective, there was little point in pretending. When he finished, Andrew was quiet for a long moment, rolling his glass between his palms. Finally, he spoke. "Do you know what it takes to become a Royal Guard?" Marcus shook his head. "First, you need to serve in active army duty for at least 3 years. Not just serve. You need to excel. You need to demonstrate not just competence, but exceptional character. Then you apply, and fewer than 1 in 10 qualified candidates are accepted. Once accepted, you undergo additional intensive training. You learn not just how to remain motionless, though that is harder than it looks, believe me, but you learn history, protocol, situational awareness. You learn to identify real threats among thousands of harmless tourists. You learn to maintain perfect focus for hours, even when your body is screaming for you to move." He took a sip of his drink. "But more important than all of that, you learn about service. Real service. Not the kind where you want applause and recognition. The quiet kind. Where you stand in a box for hours while people take stupid pictures and make jokes about you, and you can't react because your presence serves a greater purpose. You are part of a living tradition, a symbol of continuity and national service." Marcus felt his face grow warm. "I really messed up, didn't I?" "You were disrespectful," Andrew agreed, but his voice was not cruel. "But the more important question isn't what you did, but why? What in you needed to belittle that man?" It was the same question Isabel had asked. The question Marcus had been avoiding. "I don't know," he finally said. Maybe because he represented something I never had to be. He chose something difficult. He commits to something daily, and I—" Marcus stopped, surprised by the honesty coming out of him. "I never had to choose anything. Everything was given to me. Money, opportunities, connections. I never had to fight for anything. And maybe seeing someone who clearly had so much conviction about his purpose, I wanted to make him seem small because it made me feel, I don't know, less empty? Andrew nodded slowly. That's a more honest reflection than most people manage. But it doesn't change what I did. No, it doesn't. But recognition is the first step toward growth. Andrew signaled to the bartender for another round. Can I tell you a story? Marcus nodded. When I was 23, fresh out of training, I was unbearable. I thought I was invincible because I had passed Marine training. I thought that made me better than civilians. I walked around with that kind of arrogance only young soldiers manage. One day, my commanding officer, a man named Gerald Hutchins, I'll never forget, called me into his office. I thought I was going to be praised for something. Instead, he said, "Finnegan, you completed training. Congratulations. That puts you on the same level as every other Marine who completed training. It doesn't make you special. Now comes the hard part, proving every day in every small action that you are worthy of what that uniform represents. And most fail not in combat, but in the small moments, in how they treat others, in remembering why they are serving." Andrew chuckled softly. I was furious. I thought he was being unfair. It took years for me to understand what he was trying to teach me. The uniform doesn't make you special. Your actions while wearing it do, and more importantly, your actions when you are not wearing it. How do I fix this? Marcus asked. How do I become less who I was today? Andrew considered the question carefully. There's no simple answer, but it starts with recognizing that other people, all people, have as much depth and complexity as you do. That guard is not a character in your Instagram story. He is the protagonist of his own complicated story. He has a son who adores him. He has fears and hopes. He has moments when he doubts himself. But he chose, repeatedly, to serve something greater than his own comfort. That deserves respect. Everyone deserves that basic level of respect until they prove otherwise through their own actions. But what about people who serve? Marcus pressed. Like that guard, like you. What motivates you? How do you do it? Andrew stayed quiet for a long time, looking into his glass. When he spoke, there was something reverent in his voice. For me, it always came down to something my grandfather told me. He served in World War II. He said, Andrew, life gives you two fundamental choices. You can spend your life taking, or you can spend your life giving. Both are hard in their own way, but only one lets you look in the mirror and genuinely like the man looking back. That stayed with me. Service, real service, isn't about self-denial or martyrdom. It's about finding meaning through contribution, being part of something that will continue long after you're gone. Every time I stood at my post, tired, uncomfortable, wishing I could move, I remembered, I'm not here for me. I'm here for something bigger. And that awareness turned physical discomfort into something that mattered. Marcus felt tears well up in his eyes. I wasted so much time, he whispered. Time past is gone, Andrew said gently, but future time is still ahead of you. The question is, what are you going to do with it? They drank until the pub began to empty. Andrew eventually excused himself. He had dinner plans with his daughter, but before he left, he placed a hand on Marcus's shoulder. Look, you did something stupid, but you're processing, you're questioning. That matters more than you think. Most people never even get there. They go through life without ever questioning their impulses, their motivations. You have an opportunity now to grow, to change, to become someone you truly respect. Don't waste it. After Andrew left, Marcus stayed seated alone a little longer. The bartender was cleaning. The pub was nearly empty. He took his phone out and opened Instagram. The video he had recorded earlier was still in his drafts. He watched it, saw himself making faces, heard his own voice saying those stupid things. It felt like watching a stranger he didn't like. He deleted the video. Not dramatically, he simply deleted it, because it didn't deserve to exist, because that moment shouldn't have been entertainment. Then he stood up, paid his bill with a generous tip, and stepped out into the London night. The walk back to the hotel was long, but he decided to walk. The city was alive around him. Thousands of people, each with their own complicated stories. He passed a homeless man, and instead of looking away as he usually did, he stopped. He pulled out his wallet and gave the man £50. Not because it would make Marcus feel better, but because the man needed it. And because Marcus was beginning to understand that recognition, truly seeing other people, was the first step toward any real change. When he got to the hotel, Isabel was in the room reading. She looked up when he walked in, her expression cautious. "Hi," she said calmly. "Hi." Marcus sat on the edge of the bed, facing her. "You were right. About everything." Isabel closed the book. "Marcus." "No, let me finish. I spent the last few hours thinking. Drinking too, I admit, but mostly thinking. And I talked to a former Marine who asked me questions I didn't want to answer. And I realized..." He paused, searching for the words. "I realized I've been living my whole life as a spectator, seeing other people as entertainment or inconveniences, but never really seeing them. And today, when that guard spoke, it wasn't anger in his voice. It was disappointment, like he expected better from me. And part of me wants to say, he doesn't even know me, how can he judge me? But the point is, he wasn't judging me. He was simply existing with purpose, and I tried to turn that into a joke because it made me feel small." Isabel said nothing for a moment. Then, calmly, "What do you want to do about it?" "I don't know. But I know I don't want to be that person in the video. I don't want to go through life making others smaller so I can feel big. I want..." He hesitated. "I want to find something that matters, something I believe in, something worth serving." "That will take time," Isabel said softly. "It's not the kind of thing you discover in a day." "I know, but maybe the first step is stopping the things I know are wrong." Isabel nodded slowly. "That's a start." They sat in silence for a moment, and then Marcus asked, "Are we done?" Isabel considered the question. "Honestly, I don't know. But I do know I don't want to be with someone who treats people the way you treated that guard. So the question is, are you really going to change? Or is this just you saying what you think I want to hear?" "I don't know if I'll change," Marcus admitted. "But I want to try. For the first time, I really want to try." It was the most honest answer he had. And for now, it was enough. The next morning before they left London, Marcus did something Isabel didn't expect. He insisted on going back to Buckingham Palace, not for a photo, not for a selfie, just to stand and watch. They stood there for almost an hour. The guard from yesterday wasn't there. Different shifts, Marcus assumed. But another one was. This one looked younger, maybe 30. And Marcus watched the way he stood, the unbreakable discipline, the silent presence. He watched other tourists approach, some respectful, others less so. And he stood there witnessing, finally understanding that he was watching not just a man in uniform, but a choice. When they finally walked away, Isabel took his hand. "Thank you for doing this." "Had to," Marcus said simply. The flight back to New York was quiet. Marcus didn't sleep. Instead, he stared out the window, watching the ocean pass below, thinking about who he was and who he wanted to become. He thought about Guard James Crawford, about Andrew Finnegan, about all those who had found purpose through service. And for the first time in his life, Marcus Hartwell considered the possibility that maybe wealth and privilege were not enough. Real meaning came from what you were willing to give and not from what you had. It was a scary thought, an uncomfortable thought. But also, Marcus realized with surprise, it was a thought full of possibility. In the comments, I want to know, have you ever been Marcus? Have you ever belittled someone to feel bigger? Or maybe you were James. You kept your dignity when others tried to take it away. Share your story. This is a safe space for honesty, not judgment. If you made it this far, comment "Lost Tourist" so I know and can leave a beautiful heart on your comment. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave your like.